Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Project 78. My name is Mark. We're going to be installing the Wilwood rear disc conversion kit and also the front calipers on the 78 Cutlass. First thing we're going to do is get this stuff unboxed. I'll take you through the process. So let's get going. Nice. Looks like we got some nice stickers here. And here's your pads. Here's your slide pins. Let's get this out of the bag. Nice. Nice. This is a project long overdue, guys. I've been wanting to get this done for a long time. There goes all my paperwork. Get this opened up here. I'll do the best I can with one hand. I may have to set the camera up on a tripod here to get all this stuff out of here. More stickers, paperwork. Assuming those are your rear calipers. Nice and low profile. And these are your rear emergency brake setups. Very cool. And in here, we got your rear rotors. Look at those babies. Okay, this right here is your emergency brake cable kit. We're going to find out how all this connects and find out how it connects to the existing emergency brake setup that's on the car. But there's some pretty heavy duty cables in here. And you got some clamps in here. Looks like some adapters. So we're gonna have to find out how all this stuff attaches to the car. All right, here's everything unboxed. And what I'll do is I'm going to put all of the part numbers, all of the descriptions down below. So if you guys need to reference anything, everything will be there. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we got to get the car up in the air. We're going to pull the front wheels off, and we're going to start on the front calipers. All right, so here's the calipers discs. These are original OEM stuff. I don't think these calipers are original to the car because I'm looking, I see there's still a sticker here. It's got like a QR code. I don't know how long QR codes have been around, but I decided to reuse the front rotors, so I'm going to get them cleaned up the best I can. They hardly have any miles on them, so I didn't really see any point in buying new ones. These were fine. There was no run out on these. They're not warped at all. So we're going to reuse them. Why not? Save a couple bucks there. All right, so first thing we're doing, we're pulling the caliper off. I'm going to get these pins out of here. Pull the caliper off, disconnect the hose, and I'm going to pull this cap. And most likely I'm going to pull the whole rotor assembly off right down to the spindle. Let's go. All right, easy enough. Still a lot of meat left on these pads. Hardly use them. So the grease looks fairly fresh in here. I want to say we probably did these not too long ago. We're gonna get this all cleaned up and put some nice fresh new grease in there. There's your rear seal. This seal's gonna have to come out. You know what? I don't think I bought a new seal, because I'm probably gonna end up destroying that, getting it out. Because I need to get that out in order to get this bearing out. Well, I'm gonna try my best to get the seal out without destroying it. And if I do, just have to get some new ones. No problem. No problem at all. Beautiful. Okay. We'll be able to rescue this. Parts run. Pick up some grease. Clear. And a couple cans of this. Give me some black paint. Some more shop towels. So unfortunately, they did not have the rear seal. I'm sure we'll be fine. We're going to be fine. But yeah, they don't carry parts really much for 1978 Cutlass anymore. You used to be able to get these all over the place. But like I said, I'm going to reuse this. Well, I'm sure we'll be good. We're also going to clean up these bearings, get all the old grease out of them, and we'll repack everything. There we go. Not bad. I mean, came out as I expected. So we're going to bolt this back on, and I also painted the rotor, inside of the rotor. I'll show you what I did there. Okay, here's the setup I made for the front rotors. I just cut a piece of cardboard out, taped off the threads, and then just sprayed everything black. All right, I wanted to stop here for a sec. Here's the old caliper. This is the hose that connects to that bracket on the frame. So the Wilwood kit does not have those ends on there. So what they do have is these adapters. So these adapters take the place of the OEM fitting. And then these are gonna thread in. They give you new copper washers. Here's your banjo fittings to kind of duplicate what they have here on the new calipers. And new retention clips. So we're at the point now we're gonna repack the bearings with grease and put the rotors back on and fit the calipers onto the rotors. All right, at this point, the whole assembly can go back together. The bearings are cleaned out. All the races have been checked. So we're gonna goop these up and put everything back together. Still fits in there nice. Looks good. Pin seems to be a little bit oversized, but that's okay. Okay, so that's obviously the back. Feels good so far. Attempt number 2. I flattened the clip out a little bit because it was too sprung. It seems like it's a little better. There it is. All right, I was able to get this started. It took some time to line it up. Bend the line around a little bit. Pretty tight clearance there on the top A-arm, but I think once the suspension settles and sits, when it's on the ground, it'll be okay. But I have the steering turned all the way the other way to the left because I wanted to see how that hose was gonna be affected in the back. It looks like it clears everything. That's with that fitting straight down. So it kind of loops down and around, comes back up. It doesn't look like it's going to pinch on anything, swinging either way. So I'm going to tighten her up right there. Okay, we are installed 100% on the driver's side. I'm pretty much just going to repeat the process on the passenger side, front. Basically the same thing I did on the driver's side. I'll catch up with you after I get this one all put together and I'll show you how it came out. Okay, one thing also I caught is that there's a retaining clip here on the old pad, and the new pad that came with the Wilwood brake system has that same setup, and it didn't come with the clip, so I just reused the old one off the other one. So they just pop off, and what that does, it just holds it into the piston. So I didn't do that on the other one. I did try, I dry fitted already, it fits right in there. So I'm going to take the other one off, obviously, and get that done. And also another thing I didn't do is lube the pins. So I'm going to put a little dab of grease on the pins, the slider pins on each side. All right, we've got everything cleaned up. Rotor's painted, backing plate is painted, all the bearings are cleaned up, everything's ready to repack. There's still a lot of parts left over. I feel like I haven't really done much today. It's been almost the whole day out here, but we got a lot done. We did get a lot done. It's getting late, so I'm going to pack it up. The Oldsmobile clock says it's 10:05. So we're going to pack this in, and we're going to attack this thing again tomorrow. So we'll see everybody tomorrow morning. All right, we were able to button up the front end. The calipers are all in, installed. Everything's tight. So I'm going to drop the front end down, and I'm going to look at how those hoses sit once the suspension is at rest. So I'll show you where it sits. No pinch points down below. I'll bring the camera on the other side so you can see the top end. And here's the other side. You can see it much better over here. Plenty of room. There's your fitting up top. It's got plenty of room. There's not going to be any binding or chafing on anything. So the first thing we're going to do, drain the oil out of this, and what's nice is an aftermarket cover, so it's got a plug. We're just going to drain the oil, and we're going to start there. Ah, damn it. The floor jack is in the way, so couldn't get it all the way back there. That'll work. There's a lot of goop on the end of this. I think this is magnetic. All right, while that's draining, I'm going to start working on getting these the other bolts loose. Okay, hardly any prying necessary. This rear end was installed by my dad about 10 years ago. This has 373 gears in it, Eaton Posi, and I remember we had to put aftermarket axles in there because the Eaton Posi has 28 spline axles and the stock OEMs are 26. So we got to position the rear end here. This pin's got to come out. This is the retainer bolt. So we got to take this retainer bolt out, and this pin is going to then slide out, and that will allow us to push our axles in towards the center and drop those C-clips. All right, so I pulled the rear wheels. These are the axles I was talking about. These are aftermarket axles. And what will happen is once we pull that pin out of the rear end, these axles should be able to push in, drop the C-clip, and then the axles should pull out. I think I got to spin it because this bearing cap is in the way. I can't take that bolt out. Let's see if I can get it out there. There it is. Beautiful. We got it. Now we just need to push our axles in towards the center. All right, there's one. Make sure as we pull this out, we don't rip that. There we go. Okay, looking this brake over, I'm just going to dismantle everything. I think it's a better route to go because I got to take this emergency brake cable out anyway. It attaches to the linkage in here, and it also kind of, there's like a little spring retention clip in here that attaches it to the back plate. So all that's got to come out anyway. So we're just going to rip all the brake components out and strip it down to the back plate. That'll be easier to get to the bolts and everything anyway. All right. So here's what we got. This flange right here is going to have to be cut. There's no question about it. The way this is set up, there's no way it's going to fit on that flange because it just goes way up too high. So we're going to have to cut it. The way the bolt pattern is set up, you can see there's 4 bolts. The 2 on the bottom, we'll use the existing, and then we're going to have to drill and tap 2 new holes up here. Okay, so looking at this backing plate, I took a measurement from the bottom bolt holes to the top of where the emergency brake cable attaches, because that's our lowest point from the top of this assembly. So if we take that measurement to the bottom bolt hole, it's 3 5/8, and that's giving it a little bit of room. I mean, probably a 1/16. So what I did was I came down to our plate here, and measuring from the bottom, 3 5/8, I drew a line and just took a square and scribed the mark there, and that's where we're going to cut. Okay, now that should allow this to have clearance beyond here. There it is. I like it. Okay, so now all I got to do is, I may actually bolt it in place with the bottom 2, and then mark out the top holes, and then we'll punch them and we'll drill them out. I was able to find matching bolts. Got matching bolts, matching washers. I took out our trusty, well-organized box of bolts. I was able to find 4 in here, found nice washers in here, and we've got a good setup here. And the length on these, I think, should work out perfectly. Because looking at these on the back plate, you got about a 1/2 inch there, and that's about what that backing plate is. Or I'm sorry, the flange on the axle. So these bolts here, the top, these are going to be the top 2. The existing bolts that came on the original backing plate are going to go on the bottom. And I think my idea is to get the hubs, the backing plate centered on the hub, is I'm just going to use some feeler gauges. I'm going to snug up the bottom 2 bolts on the flange, and then I'm just going to figure out what measurement is pretty much equal all the way around so it's centered on the hub. I'll tighten it there, and then I'll punch and drill the top 2 holes and get them all set up. I think this is as good as we're going to get it. So I tighten up the bottom 2 bolts enough to be able to tap it around with a hammer. I just used this rubber impact hammer, and was tapping the backing plate here to get all of this measurement around the hub equal. So as you can see, it's pretty equal there. I used the feeler gauges. All right, we charted out the bolts. These are 3/8 by 16 on the threads. So that requires a 5/16 drill bit to tap those out. Okay, what we did here is we drilled a test piece. This was the piece that we cut off. So I just wanted to drill and tap it, make sure everything went okay, which it did. And we found some longer bolts. The reason why we went with longer bolts, because the shorter ones, between going through the distance of the aluminum here and the back plate, it wasn't coming all the way through. So it was like 2 or 3 threads short. So let me get that together for you to show where it comes up. Okay, so here's a test fit I wanted to show you. Bolt with the washer, and by the way, these are 1 inch length. And as you can see, the backside sticks out about an 8 3/16. So that'll work perfect. Okay, that's going to work out great. Okay, like I mentioned before, what I'm going to do is before I mount the back plate, I'm going to dry fit it actually right now just to make sure everything fits right. But I want to organize, while that plate is off, I want to organize and figure out how this brake line is going to attach. So I think I'm going to play around with those brackets. We're going to be bending some brake line here to get it into the mount and figure out what works. All right, the first problem we're seeing here is to mount these brackets. So what these are supposed to do, designed to wrap around the axle tube, and it's much too large for the axle tube that I have. The measurement of this bracket is about 3 inches. It's just shy of 3 inch. So as you can see there's a lot of play. Probably talking almost, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe a little less on each side, all around. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I might try to fab something up to take up that space, so we can still use this bracket. The other thought I have is just to maybe drill out a hole or drill out a washer to kind of emulate that, and possibly just even weld our own right to the axle tube. All right, this might be the solution here, guys. But I found some nylon rope. Okay, it's about a 1/4 inch. And what I did was I lined the inside of the bracket with the rope. And then I encapsulated it, the whole thing, with shrink tube. And this is the result. So unfortunately though, I had to cut the shrink tube into small sections like this because the shrink tube just doesn't bend. It doesn't bend that radius. So you have to, cut smaller sections and kind of overlap each one to kind of give you this right here. So you can see the rope in there. I cut some slits on the top for the screws. I did test fit on the axle tube, and it fits nice and snug. I think this will work. Absolutely, it'll work. Really, all this is for is just to mount this guy right here, which fits into here, and it just holds your fitting, so your tube doesn't bounce around, or your brake line. So this will be adequate, and I'm sure it'll look okay under there. Everything's black under there anyway. You're probably not even going to notice it. So this is the solution I got with the material I have laying around the garage. I really did look for like some PVC, something that actually fit the size. That would really look really nice in there. But this is going to do for now. This will get us set up, and if I do find another option down the road, they're not going to be that hard to change out. Here's your finished product. So the clamp is bolted around the axle with the makeshift rope to take up the room, and it doesn't look bad. You can hardly even tell. So I'm definitely happy with it. It doesn't move. It's pretty sturdy. And like I said, all it really does is hold that fitting for the line anyway. And I have everything dry fit over there. I'm going to take the camera on the other side. I'll show you. But I have a 90-degree connector coming out of the back of the caliper. And your axle clamp goes right in front of the spring here. So the only thing we need to do is connect from this point over to the distribution block on the other side of the axle here, which I'll show you. And here's the disc with the caliper just kind of hanging there. I did bolt it in here on the back plate because I wanted to see where everything actually sat, so I could route this line properly, and I knew where that bracket had to be. So there's your bracket that I showed you underneath, and there's your distribution block in front of the axle, if you can see that right at the top of my finger. So I got to get from that point a hard line over to there. over to the bracket I just put on. Okay, the brake line is installed. As you can see, it's coming out of that block down there. That's mounted on the axle. Loops around the axle, comes down and mounts into your fitting. Okay, first we'll get our backing plate put on. And this was all dry fit before, so I know this is all good. This all fits. So we're going to get this on in a more permanent fashion and get everything torqued down the way it should be. Kind of have to feel around on the other side, and you can feel when it goes in. There it is. All right, so what I did this off camera. All I did was I put the C-clip back on, and I just put the pin in enough to keep this from pushing back in and losing the C-clip again. So this isn't going to be able to turn because the pin is sticking out in there, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't lose it and push it too far in when I go to mount everything. So this is exactly where it's supposed to be. And this adapter here, it's going to fit right around that hub. And what it does is inside here, you can see a little lip there. It kind of just sits right in there. And the back sits perfectly flush with the back of this. So that ring's going to go on. Reline up the holes. And obviously the emergency brakes, the shoes are not adjusted out, I don't think. So I'm going to play with that once everything's together here. Probably end up taking this all back apart, but I just really want to put this together and make sure everything fits the way it's supposed to before I really go any further. Here's the fitting that's in the back. If you remember, the reason why we have to use Teflon tape on this one, the front calipers had the banjo fitting with the copper washers, so the Teflon tape was not needed there because it's just a different setup. So what I did was on the back here, when I had the caliper dry fit, I put a mark in the back of the caliper to know what direction this fitting needs to be. After looking at this and studying it, what we have is the back mounting plate. So we got a shim. That's basically what we're gonna have to do in order to get this caliper to fit correctly. So what's happening here? I'm gonna try and I'm sorry about the camera. I'm gonna do the best I can. It's kind of tight in there, but what's happening is that back plate, mounting plate for the caliper, is actually rubbing right now against the back of the rotor, which obviously that's not gonna fly. That's not gonna work. Again, doing the best I can here. As you can see, there's your plate right there, and your rotor is literally rubbing right up against it. So with the caliper there, the caliper has to be centered on the rotor. And I did the measurement, and it's going to be about 1/8 of an inch space. So now looking at the plate that I have off the car for the other side, this is the mounting plate that I'm talking about. This plate right here. That's what the rotor is rubbing on. So as you can see, there's already 2 spacer plates in there. The kit didn't come with any extra spacer plates or anything. But my only option is to space that whole plate back 1/8 of an inch at least. I'll start at 1/8 of an inch, and then I'll use shims to space the caliper for fine tuning. All right, so I went back onto the Summit website and I found out that Wilwood makes exactly what we need. Here's our 1/8 inch spacer that's going to go in between the existing bracket and the back plate, and that's going to give us our 1/8 inch space. It comes listed as a 0.125, which is your decimal, and your part number is right here. So if anybody else runs into this where you need 1/8 of an inch, here's your part number. Okay, existing spacers here come bolted on with a couple of washers that are about 1/16 a piece, so that's about 1/8 an inch, which is going to make up that spacer that we just bought. So I'm going to take those out and put a thinner washer in to get more depth on that hex bolt going into the back plate. And the spacer is going to be installed right between the back plate and the existing spacers right here. So we're going to go ahead and get that installed, and we're going to get that back plate bolted onto the flange. Alright, success guys. Check this out. So now after adding the washers and the spacers, we've got plenty of clearance. We've got about an 1/8 of an inch clearance there between the rotor and the mount. And I also used 3 shims that came with the kit. 3 top and bottom. And as you can see, the rotor is nice and centered in the caliper. So we're going to go with that. I'm going to throw the wheel and tire on now, and we're going to check for clearance. Let's see what we got. Ah, plenty of room. Look at that. Sweet. Can't spin it because the axle pin is just hanging there. But look at this, guys. We got plenty of room around this wheel. Plenty of clearance. There's about a 1/2 inch there easily. This is going to work out great. We're going to load our pads in. Retainer clip goes back on. Okay, we're going to get our hose put on here, that fitting that I spun in earlier. We're just going to get this hand tight, and then I'll tighten everything up after. There's the routing of the hose. No binding, no chafing. Almost looks factory. So this side went really well. The spacing worked out exactly the same as the other side. I'm really happy with the way everything came out. So at this point, the only thing that needs to be done is we got to connect the brake line to that center distribution block. It's going to take some bends. I think I'm going to use that new line. I don't trust the old ones. I looked at, they're just rusty, and I don't like them. So I have brand new ones. I might as well use them. I just have to cut them and bend them a little bit and make them fit, obviously, and it'll come out probably most likely looking like the other side. So once I get that done, I'll show you guys underneath the car and let you know how it came out. We've got the lines run. Really no problems. The line was a little bit of a challenge, but overall about the same as the other side. So you can see how the flex hose runs out of the back of the caliper. Here's your clamp. Looks nice and straight. And then it rides up over the rear diff and comes down into that block, if you can see it. So that's it, man. The whole rear brake system is complete. If you look in there, they're all cleaned up on the bottom. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to clean up this gasket surface a little bit. There's a little bit of overspray here. I'm going to try and scrape that off. I've got some Permatex gasket seal, so I'm going to put a little bit of Permatex on there, put the gasket, and clean up the cover and get this thing covered back up. Okay, and here's the rear cover. I got it mostly cleaned up the inside, cleaned up the gasket surface, but it's still a little bit dull. This is aluminum, so now what I have is I've got some aluminum brightener that I have left over from doing the tubes on my pontoon boat. So I'm going to spray this down with some aluminum brightener and see if I can get this to clean up a little bit nicer. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. We're going to hose this down and see what we got. All right. I'm digging it. That looks really good. That shined up really nice. I gave the Summit emblem there a little sanding, make it look a little shiny, I guess. And here's the oil that's going back in. We got your standard 80, 90 weight. And then we've got some limited slip. It's a supplement. It's an additive you put in there. It's supposed to reduce chatter. It's specifically made for limited slip. So that's going to go in there also. Okay, so we got some Permatex gasket sealer. Get these holes to line up. Pretty good. Have enough room. Pouring out now. All right, there we go. There we go. We're full. Now I just gotta find the cap. Okay. We are done. All right, we've got the back end all buttoned up. The next step is I'm going to lower the jack down, and we got to jack the front end of the car up so I can get to that proportioning valve and tighten up the rest of those fittings up there and get the cross member bolts in, and we can start bleeding. So we're almost back to the point where we left off at part 1 of this episode. The two bolts for the cross member, there's I don't even know where this clamp goes. Once I get under there, I'll figure it out. And we have the bracket that bolts to the proportioning valve. This spring is part of the linkage, the shift linkage. So all this is almost ready to go on, and after we bleed the brakes, this is our brake light. That's where the bleeder part goes that you screw into the top. Okay, so here we are back at the proportioning valve. So I just got to make sure and go back and make sure all of these nuts are tight in the valve itself. I know I tightened this back one, but I'm going to double check these. And here's our bleeder blocker here. So we're super close to bleeding the system as soon as I get these all tight. Shift linkage is back on. We've got the bracket mounted and the bar going up to the column shifter. It's all set. Okay, we got everything tight under the car. The cross members tightened up. We got all the brake lines run. Everything's all tightened up into the proportioning valve. So now we're up at the top end, and we're going to set up the brake bleeder system here. I know originally I said I was going to do it on the bench. It's already installed. I'm just doing it in the car. I've got the old Dorman bleeder kit, so we'll get this set up. These just clip on here like this. Okay, the lines are set up to bleed. I left these long. They come long. I left them long because a couple things. I want to be able to see it in the car, so these are up. So I'll be able to see the air bubbles in the car when I'm pushing the brake pedal. And also I want to reuse these tubes because they fit perfectly on the bleeders, on the calipers. Okay, we're going to get this filled up to just about the top. All right, so I've got it to where there's no air bubbles left in the tubes. I'm going to refill the reservoir back up to the top. All right, I don't think we lost that much fluid, a couple drops. Okay, we're at the right rear caliper, and like I said, there's your tubing. Fits on those the bleeders perfectly, and you can still have access to the nut to break those free. And I got my dad here helping me and we're starting at the top piston. And remember, there's 4 pistons in here, so we got one on the outside, one on the inside. We're gonna have to bleed to.
Okay, ready?
Yep, go ahead. Okay, open. All right, good. All right, so we had to change methods here. We found a kit here that I didn't even know we had. It's this vacuum pump system we got with a little gauge on it. I got it up to about 15 pounds. I'm pumping it in, and I finally got some fluid here. Trying it the traditional way with putting the pedal down, bringing it back up, closing the bleeder, and it took forever. We weren't getting any fluid, but this seems to be pulling it through now, so we should be okay. Okay, down whenever you're ready. Okay, all the brakes have successfully been bled out. Very happy with the results. We were able to get all the air out after using that vacuum pump, which I highly recommend getting on a dry system because we weren't able to push that fluid through. So we were able to get everything bled out and everything's nice and solid. The pedal's nice and firm. So right now we're gonna throw all the wheels on, kind of do a reset, get cleaned up, and we're gonna start up the Cutlass finally. First thing we're gonna do is get this battery changed out. This thing is from 2018, so 8 years old, and it's deader than a door now. I mean, it won't even turn on the dome lights. There's absolutely nothing going on with this battery. I tried charging it for a couple days. I heard it percolating, but it just got hot and it did absolutely nothing. So we went out and bought a new cheapy battery just to throw it in there and get this thing started. on. There you go. I haven't really had a chance to test the fans thoroughly. Up the temperature. And we do have pressure this time. Reservoir is full. Just taking for a spin around the block. I got to stop and put some fresh gas in this thing. We're pretty much on E here. But so far the brakes, the tests went well. As you saw, I stopped in the driveway fine. No parking brakes yet, but that's going to be next. But taking it for a quick drive, and I want to make sure everything's settled in. Plus I want to look for any possible leaks. I'll get it back up on the ramps. I'm going to be underneath the car anyway to do the parking brake assemblies. But first initial thoughts of the brakes, I thought they would be more firm. I don't know if there's still air in the system or if they got to break in. But right now the pedal feels like it wants to go further than it should. But they're good brakes, like they stop. You just got to go down on the pedal. Maybe that's just the characteristic of this master cylinder. I don't even remember what the brakes felt like before. Oh, man, yeah, that feels good. Feels good. Here are the parts and pieces for the parking brake assembly. We've got clamps grommeted. These two here, these Cutlass pieces, they are what's going to connect to the drum brakes, the backing plate. The cable connects to those. And then we've got the termination point here for where the cables come in. And then on the other side, you're just going to have the bare cables coming out, which are going to clamp into this guy. And then the only problem that I have right now is how is this going to connect to the existing brake cable that comes out of the car, and I'll show you that underneath. Okay, looking at underneath the car here, the existing parking brake assembly has this bracket here. This cable here comes from the front of the car, which goes to the pedal. It goes to this termination plate, which then brings it into the two cables. One cable goes over to the passenger side and the other stays here on the driver's side. If you look up top there, right up there, that's where it's clamped. It kind of goes over the rear end there, and that's how that cable gets over there. So all that's going to come out. I don't know how the heck I'm going to get up there, but we're going to give it our best shot. So the problem really is where this terminates and how it's going to convert over to this cable. So I might have an idea for this part here. I found an old bracket digging through old parts that we had in boxes, and I think this might actually work. Let me show you what I got. I got all the old cables removed. They weren't too much of a hassle. So here's the part here I was talking about. In this part of the frame right here where the lower trailing arm mounts to, I punched a couple holes here I'm going to drill out, and this bracket's going to sit right here. And the new cables are going to kind of route exactly where the old ones used to be. So this might actually work. Here it is mounted, and I really think this is going to work well. Because here's your clevis here. So we have plenty of room for that to fit in between the bottom floor hump here of the floorboards and your fittings up here. Your cables are going to terminate here. So we just need to find something to attach to this clevis and get that cable from the pedal attached to this. And then it's just as simple as rerouting the rear cables to the drums. I'm going to show you what I'm working on here. I'm going to make my own bracket. So I've got cut some a strip of metal out of this guy here. It's about 10 gauge roughly. And I folded up the corners, welded up the corners to give it a little bit more strength, kind of create like a bucket there. Bent the tabs in. So what's going to happen is this piece is going to fit right into this clevis here. I'm going to drill some holes, obviously, and the pin's going to go right through everything, right? And then the cable from the car coming from the pedal is going to come in the bottom here. And then what I did was I bought some barrels. I bought a set of crimpers and a variety of aluminum barrels that we're going to crimp onto. I already did a test piece here, and that thing is not coming off. So with the combination of everything I got here, I think we've got a solution to how we're going to connect it to the pedal on the car. So this is almost done. I'm just going to drill some holes here, and I'll catch up with you guys in a minute. And final product, here we go. So, just like I explained, it clamps right in with this pin. It actually does swivel. And it's got the hole there for the steel cable that's going to go through from the pedal from the car. And then we're going to crimp on an end that's going to fit right inside there. Should work out. I'm going to give this a shot of paint, and we're going to be on our way. Okay, so this is one of the parking brake cables. This was on the passenger side. I already had it in the car, and I have it marked out here with tape, so we're going to give this a cut right here, and we'll be able to get it installed permanently. All right, so this is the final setup. We got the clamp in. The cable is secured on our homemade bracket. Everything is tight up here, so that's it. So I'll show you guys it working here. We are going to end this video here. I really appreciate everybody being here, watching the video, seeing the project through with me. I had a lot of fun doing the project, a lot of fun doing the video. I hope you guys come back for some more. I have plenty of projects planned for the Cutlass. No exact schedule on when I'm going to get to them, but I do have plans. Hope I was able to help somebody out with this video. If you're considering doing this to your G-body, I highly recommend it. Wilwood makes a great product. I had some small issues with, a few things here and there, but nothing I couldn't overcome, and it's a really clean install. I'm really happy with the way it came out. So again, thank you everyone. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.